Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, peace out to the rest of you. This is Blackheart, signing black, and again asking you to hit that share button even before you hit like or subscribe, because the message is more important than the messenger. This message is about George Macon and his live stream he did with Oshay Duke Jackson on the Oshay Vlogcast channel, for which there was a follow-up by Obsidian later on, and I'm going to take Obsidian's side in this one for this reason. George Macon's intentions are honorable. He means well. George Macon has the same instinct that I have, which is to look out for the well-beings of the babies at all cost. That intention is honorable. It is good. It is more than noble. It is moral, highly moral. And that is not something for which we should ever detract from George Macon. The problem, Mr. Macon, is not that you have a bad intention. And if people act like you have a bad intention, even people in the manosphere that are on my side of the fence on this issue, still should not act like you've got some kind of bad intention. However, there are things that have not been pointed out to you, Mr. Macon. In all of the hours, people have gone back and forth with you and y'all have interrupted each other, and that was the mistake. This is a case where this isn't a live stream, so we can't go back and forth with each other. And this means that I get to finish what I'm saying. And if you do respond, I'd get to finish listening to everything you've said. And you get to finish what you're saying, and we would not be tempted even to interrupt each other. The reason why guys, even like me, who want the same things that you do for the babies, will not mentor black Western children of single mothers is because of the conditions under which they were conceived. I did at one point marry a single mother. She was not American. She was not even a Western woman. She was black. She was also a widow. There was no irresponsibility in her selection criteria. She wasn't jumping over guys like me or not like me. She wasn't jumping over decent dudes to get with some ain't shit nigga. It was nothing like that. Then letting him skeet and squirt raw dog in the pussy and then having his baby. Nothing of that nature. She married him. They had their children. In a work-related accident beyond his control, he passed away. He was electrocuted. He suffered in pain all day in the hospital, and he died that evening. He died in excruciating pain, and the kids were traumatized, of course. I mean, they got two parents one day, and next day they ain't got their parents, and a little while later they got to live in a house that's in bad condition. That's what wound up happening to them. I don't hate this for them. I mean, I don't hate her for this. There's no reason to. I don't hate him for dying. I don't hate them babies. Nobody did anything wrong. When we married, she, of course, female nature, mother's concern, put in the agreement that I took on financial responsibility for her babies. I put in the contract, fair enough. Now, this also means that we live off of what I make and what I can afford. No pressure. Also, I can marry another woman. And you cannot object unless, of course, there's a legitimate concern for your health, or if you can be sure that I am treating you unequally, and it's not based on how unequally the two of you are treating me. So even if she finds out that I'm treating the other wife better, she has to make sure that the other wife is not treating me better in order for her to raise an objection to it, period. This is what has to be done. These are the terms. You want to put that in there? I'm putting this in there. She agreed. Because she's not a Western feminist. She's a mom, she's a woman, but she's not a Western feminist. We'd be together now if it wasn't for the way that her government acted and the way her king acted. She was a good woman. She was the first one to actually spoil me. This was the first time I felt equal to other men in the eyes of an attractive woman. Now, I've always felt equal to other men most of my life, but I never felt like an attractive woman knew that we were equal. I never had that feeling before. Every other woman before that I dealt with was an American, a black American, Western ADOS woman, all the time. It was always like that. That's all I'd ever dated before I became Muslim, and that's what I married after I became Muslim. So I want you to stop and understand and realize that all these guys talking about stay in the black community in America and help build the community are doing it because you think the community can be saved. I no longer believe that it can be. Well, it can be, but it can only be saved when the men are responsible, which men actually are forced to be, and when the women will accept he's responsible, I submit. And that's not something the women are forced to do. The men come at varying levels of responsibility, as they always have in everybody's culture, in everybody's country. Black men are not better or worse than other men. Matter of fact, sometimes we're better, but we're definitely not worse than other men. We see the select, the hand-picked, cherry-picked people from other countries that were allowed to get a visa from a U.S. embassy abroad in their own countries. They go over to the United States. And that's what we see. And even then, they ain't always all of that either. That's why they may be educated in their countries. They go to the U.S. and they own a gas station. That's what we're seeing. We think that they're so together and they're not. Consequently, we think that we're so broken and they're not, when in fact, no. The dysfunction is pretty much all around. Then, to make matters worse, African-American women got us thinking that we're worse than other men, and then it turns out that no, actually what's going on is that the irresponsible men in our community just get the most rewards from the women in the form of the pussy, when the women are fine and attractive. That's what happens. The women bring their best looks and their best character to the least deserving men. We have a dysgenic breeding problem. Of course, many of you are simply going to say, well, you just don't have the sex appeal and the charm and you're just not select. You can't be select and be a responsible man and have a moral character if the definition of select is somebody that is irresponsible and has low character. It's not just the looks. I mean, that does count. But let's be honest. If a man is 6 feet tall and he has six-pack abs, six-figure income, 8-inch wiener, and he does all the romantic shit that women want him to do, she's still going to look and say something's wrong with him. Something's wrong. Something's missing. I don't know. I don't quite know what it is. There's just that, and she's going to make some sound that has no noise. There's just that blank. On the blank, that's where some sound that has no meaning, some noise that has no meaning, she's going to put it in there. He just doesn't have that that makes me tingle. That I just can't feel it. And it's always something vague and ambiguous they can't define in words. For as much as women can talk and for all the vocabulary they have, they can't define sex appeal. When people cannot define something and they're very articulate, it's because there's something wrong that they don't want you to know about. That's what it is. All of a sudden they run out of words. All of a sudden. What the F is that? There are things that are hard to describe in words for any gender, but not impossible. In the Western world, women, period, white and black, are dysgenic in their breeding preferences. They don't want certain things that we would consider to be moral, normal, responsible. So for a black man to have a moral character and a sense of responsibility is associated with being white. And sisters don't want that. Even though they'll take a white dude, they ain't gonna take no brother that's like that. We know that. So, sir, if we're going to mentor the children and be stepfathers to the children in these communities, although there are many of us who grew up with stepfathers, we saw exactly how thankless of a job it is. We saw this. Those of us who came up with stepfathers, good stepfathers, saw how thankless of a job it is. And quiet as it's kept, many brothers and sisters that had good stepfathers still to this day feel guilty because they realize how they themselves were trained and brainwashed to not really look with appreciation of what the stepfather was doing for them by the mother. They still feel guilty. A lot of stepchildren feel this way, and they don't want to talk about it now as adults, but they know something's wrong with the situation. They do get it. Sir, Mr. Macon, I would say this. If we're going to be stepfathers to black children, I would suggest that we be stepfathers to black children that are not from Western black women, preferably those that whose fathers are actually dead. I would suggest that. And the reason for it is because when you leave the Western world, some cultures do have the same dysfunction, but a lot of them don't have that dysgenic, dysfunctional breeding preference on the part of the women. They don't have that. In black America, sir, just like in black Britain and in black Canada for that matter, in black America, The reason that the children don't have dads is because the women specifically picked the men they picked, specifically because these men were not the father type. They were the breeder types. The women want one man to breed and another man to feed. You and I are the kind of man that they want to feed, not breed. If they could have their way, sir, we would do all of the feeding and none of the breeding at all. They wouldn't even castrate us and cut our nuts off because that would lower the libido and the sex drive. They wouldn't even do that. No, they would want us to be consistently trying to get the pussy by feeding somebody else's kids. If they could have their way, that's exactly what they would want. It might even be your wife. I don't know if she's like that or not. You would know better than me, but understand that if she's not one of those women, she knows someone who is, because those women are so common. Many women look at men and say, genetically, these men are not equal. I want the top. And the other woman next to her saying the same thing. I want the top. I want the top. I want the top. So they're competing to have their children by the same few men. That's not good for the society. They'll sit up and tell you it's nature. But genetic diversity is also nature. But that's not what these women are doing. They're following the instincts of the bighorn sheep that live in the Rocky Mountains. All the females wait after the tournament is over to fuck the one male that won the tournament, the headbutting tournament, even though he's later going to die of brain damage. Because winning those headbutting tournaments that the Rams have causes brain damage. So while he will later die from brain damage, fact is right now he gets to do all this fucking. If it wasn't for the few female bighorn sheep that sneak off with a regular male that didn't win the tournament and have their babies, there'd be no genetic diversity among the bighorn sheep, and the inbreeding would wipe them out. That's true because they would all have the same father. And then they'd inbreed themselves into deformities and health problems that would not allow their population to continue on. They'd breed themselves into extinction through health problems. They would inbreed themselves into extinction. And we're dealing with the same thing in the Western black community, really in the Western community, period. So that's why these children have been conceived in the first place. They are innocent victims, sir. But I'll tell you what, there is one way we can do what you're saying, and then you'll understand why I'm recording this, Mr. Macon. In order for us to be mentoring these babies that are not ours, and that were never going to be ours because we were not sexually these women's types to begin with, until, of course, well, even after they had the babies, we weren't their types. The reason is that there's something in it for us. There has to be something in it for us other than just no thank you and nigga, you still ain't shit and you still don't deserve no pussy. You don't sit up here and sexually invalidate a man, but tell him you need him for your babies. So this is what has to happen. Either the men have to get the pussy, and I'm not going to promote that because that's still fornication. Or the men have to marry these bitches, and I'm not going to promote that because you can't sit up here and take a man with a sense of responsibility and morals and match him up with a woman who feels that it's okay to screw one man and have his baby and then tell another man she doesn't even like that he's responsible to feed the kids. And he ain't no real man if he doesn't do it. I can't even promote a marriage in that case. But without no sexual gratification, there's no reason for these men to be fathers or play father. So that right there is a lose-lose scenario. Do you take the pussy, which is really still subpar, or do you reject the pussy, in which case you don't get no sexual gratification and there's no reason to do it? You're still being castrated in a sense. Or this is what you can do. You can say, okay, I have the talent. He doesn't, that man there does not have the talent, but I do, so I will utilize that talent and I will mentor your baby, but here's the condition. I'm going to make sacrifices to mentor your baby. You're going to shut the fuck up when I'm telling your baby about the dumbass choices you made so that your baby don't follow in the same footsteps. If you can get Western black women to agree to those terms, that we mentor their babies, but we get to criticize the choices that these mothers made that led to the conception of the babies in the first goddamn place. Even though we're not trying to take the babies away from the mothers or turn them against the moms, but we do have the right to tell the children, your mom's fucked up. Pardon my French. She's ratchet. She may love you or she may not. Whatever the case, her ass is ratchet. The way she picks men, that's what we have to focus on because that's how you got here. But really, when you look at all the other many choices in her life, her ass is ratchet. And you can't follow these footsteps. And I'm going to help you not follow them. Even though you love mom, even if you look after her when she gets old, that's fine. But you can't follow her same mistakes, following her footsteps. None of that ratchet shit. And I'm going to tell you now, if you are attracted to that ignorant ass kid in your class that's a class clown and he's sagging his pants, but he ain't studying nothing, your ass ratchet too. Snap the fuck out of it. That's what I'm here for, to help you do. If you're allowed to mentor these kids, or you tell her son, look, let me break it down for you like this, blood. Yeah, your mom was a slut. She's your mom and she's a nice person, but I'm telling you she's a slut. Not so that you hate her or do anything, but so that you know not to follow in the footsteps and deal with women like her. So that you know not to do it. Plus, what did your mom tell you that women like in the first place? Somebody that's nice and treats them well, and somebody that's good. Okay, your mom lied. Let me just tell you, she lied to you about that shit. She's your mom, you love her, and that's okay. Go home, give her a hug, all that. But just understand, when she starts talking to you about what women like, don't pay attention. Let her talk, let her finish. Later on, you come tell me what she said, and I'll tell you the truth behind it. If we're allowed to do that, so that the next generation of men, so that that little boy doesn't have to do the same shit, then we got a reason to mentor. But you have to get the black bitch. I'm not talking about the black woman. No. Because they don't have this problem. They ain't got that. But you got to get the black Western bitch to agree to this. And you ain't going to get them to do it, because that means accountability. That's why the black Western man cannot afford to sit up here and try to mentor these kids. There is nothing to gain, and it will change nothing. It'll just be the same thing. You're not allowed to tell that boy when the mother is fucked up and wrong and misleading the child. You're not allowed to tell a little girl when the mother's fucked up and wrong and leading the child. You don't have a reason to mentor the child in the black Western world. That's why, sir. You have to remember that the black Western world, to begin with, is a creation of the cracker, the kidnapper. Even if you want to say, well, it was black people kidnapping other black people, let me give you a brief history lesson about that too. Yes, black folks did kidnap other black folks in the interior of Africa on behalf of white folks, but what they don't tell you is that it was coastal black folks whose own wives and children were being held hostage by the crackers on the coast, who were sent into the interior to kidnap others as a ransom for their wives and kids. They don't tell you that. That's the thing they don't explain. Because just like the Western bitch who can never take accountability for what she's done, these crackers today can't take accountability because they don't even know what their ancestors did. We don't know and they don't know, so they can't tell you how their ancestors got black folks to go and kidnap each other. It ain't even their fault. But when you do tell them, they don't believe your ass, and that's why I'm sitting up here calling them still today crackers. Well, you're dealing with the Western bitch with the same psychosis. The Western woman is just the woman that was raised in the West. That's just geography. But you're dealing with the Western bitch. She never grows into a woman. She never takes accountability. She's never wrong. She's always right. And it's always your fault, nigga. And that's what we're dealing with. And you want to mentor their kids? It ain't the kid's fault. But you want to take the risk of mentoring their kids while still being held accountable to the bitch while you doing her a favor? Bruh. That's a bad deal. Already marrying their asses is a bad deal. How'd they get to be single mothers? Some are widows, like when I married, but she wasn't a Western woman anyway. She was black, she was African, but she wasn't a Western woman. She was a widow. That's a situation different. I already had kids. She and I had the same number of children, actually. This was an even match. But see, in the U.S., if I had stayed there, I would never have been allowed that sort of match, ever. It would have never been accepted of me. Oh, you got 3 kids. One from before you became Muslim and the other 2 from after you were married as a Muslim. You got these 3 kids. Why should I accept that? I want all your attention. No, bitch, you want me to feed your kids from another man. That's what the F it is. It's that bad, bro. Even in the Muslim community, in the African-American Muslim community, we got this ratchet ass problem. It ain't supposed to be that way, but it is. One of my homeboys, my man from Detroit, Michigan, he's getting approached by this woman who, she's Muslim, but she was messing with a 5%er. That's not a Muslim. I know they'll say that they are, but these are 2 different religions. Here she is, messing with a 5%er when she's a teenager, getting pregnant by this nigga 3 times. Fornicating, not even married, but fornicating 3 times. That she repeated the same mistake 3 times. Got this nigga's name tattooed on her back, and he got killed because he was a drug dealer in the streets. So he died. Now she's an alpha widow without even being a widow because she wasn't married, and she trying to chase after my Muslim homeboy because he only has 1 daughter, but she got 3. And she talking about we a package deal. with her hands on her hips, rolling her neck and everything else. Take us as we are. But please take us because we need you. That's what we're dealing with, bro. His situation is not even abnormal. It's very normal. That's why I'm mentioning his scenario. It's not a one-off. It's a whole bunch of offs. That bitch is off. Her friends are off. Her boyfriend was off. She gonna raise her kids to be off. A whole bunch of offs. She got it from other women that was off. And that's what we dealing with, Mr. Macon. And that's why it is that we can't afford to do this, man. It would be good, ideally speaking, but the reason why we have a problem is because we're in an anti-ideal situation. It's not only not ideal, it is the opposite of ideal. It is ideal for someone who hates you. It's an ideal situation for our enemies, not for us. And that's why we got it. And what's going on? The Western bitch, not the Western woman, is rolling her neck and rolling her eyes and snapping her fingers, saying you ain't no real man if you can't take care of these kids, but you still accountable to me. Are you effing kidding me? You can't put women in charge, bro. You can put women in charge of kids. You can't put women in charge of grown men. They don't even respect you if they are in charge of you. That's anywhere. Now, that's female nature, and that's universal. So, this being said, I hope that what I've said has been a benefit. I am sorry for swearing so much. Maybe one day I will not have to. This is Blackheart signing Blackout. Assalamu alaikum.